multi-talented.
Oh, wow.
Aepril, Schaile, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
I've had to write down everything that you do because you're so multi-talented.
Oh.
So let's start. We'll start with
I
A.
don't know about that.
You're an astrologer.
I am an astrologer.
You're a
Yes.
musician and composer.
Yes.
Dancer and dance teacher.
Yes.
Writer and storyteller.
Sometimes.
Mythologist.
Yes.
Animal rights advocate.
Hey, you know?
And a witch.
Yes, I am a witch.
So we have lots to talk about today. Let's start out. Where are you from?
I am originally from New York.
Mm-hmm.
You might have been able to hear that in my accent.
Little,
we first
just a
started, I
little
said,
bit.
hey, you know, straight out of my father's, vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm from New York originally. I grew up in Yonkers, Bronxville, like right on the border, literally
Okay.
on the border, like right next to the Bronx River. The lovely fluorescent green Bronx River
Okay.
with lots of little fingers of weirdness on every rock next to Lawrence Hospital, and at the time, who knows, they were dumping in there. So, like, you know, I'm lucky to be alive.
No three-eyed fish, you know,
Right.
like they have on
Right,
The Simpsons.
crayfish with like 3 claws and stuff. I say crayfish, I don't say crawfish. I'm from New York.
Yep.
And then I've lived in many different places, but I moved here from Maine.
Okay.
After Coda died, my wolf hybrid, we stayed up in Maine so he'd have wilderness. And of course I needed that as well.
Yeah.
And then we, once he passed on, we moved down here to Salem. Not even meaning to move to Salem particularly. We were trying to move to the greater Boston area just to come back to civilization,
Okay.
closest
Yeah.
thing to Maine, right? And Mike, my fiance, was searching around for apartments and basically stumbled across Salem. We'd only just
Okay.
dimly heard of Salem, Massachusetts, as, or the historical parts, but not what's going on now,
Yeah.
And he said, oh, we have to move there. It's perfect. So he found a few apartments. We checked them out, grabbed the first one, and we're still in it. And that was 3 years ago.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So do you like Salem?
I love it. I love it. People here are crazy and really cool and really smart and very emotional and passionate and
That is true.
yes, that is true, and knowledgeable about many things, and people are, I think, striving to make this a better place, a better town. I find the whole business between the sort of, I don't know what you would call the people who've been here for generations, the interaction
Yeah.
between those folks and the witchcraft community, and in the whole tourist industry, I find that really compelling to
Yes.
behold.
Yeah. There's a lot of different layers here.
That's yes. That's how I would think of it. There's a lot of different layers here, and the interesting mix that makes. For instance, that the town. I still love this. That the town. It's some of its sports teams for the schools are called the Witches.
Yeah, the Salem Witches.
The Salem
yeah.
Witches. They are
The football team,
the
I know,
football
is the
te-
Salem Witches.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And
They'll
then
have the
one-
witch on their
Right.
uniforms. And, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's perfectly normal here.
It is, yeah.
Jerry's department store is, what is it called, Witch City consignment. Everything's Witch City computers, Witch
Yep.
City ink, Witch City everything.
The police cars have the witch on them.
They have the witch on them, the cabs, and everybody's super duper with that.
Yep.
And so it's refreshing for me to not be unusual that way, at least,
Yep.
or to be to be around people that are of a like mind is fantastic. You
And
know.
my first year I lived here, it was great to see people, I mean, not just that you can wear a pentacle,
Right.
but you can be all decked out and carry your tools down to the seashore. It's like, well, they're going off to do a ritual, and it's like, rock on. You know,
Right.
it's just nobody bats an eyelash.
No.
And even to do this show is like not a problem. And
Right.
we get viewers like in the Bible Belt that watch this online and send emails like, we could never do a show like that here.
Oh, yeah.
So that part of it it's great. that we can just be this open.
When they say they can't because of threats of
Yes.
violence or ostracization and that
They would
kind
never
of thing.
get their local cable company
Oh, it
to
just
do
wouldn't even
anything.
happen.
It wouldn't even happen.
Right,
No, not at all.
right. Well, we can thank Salem Access
Yes.
for this show.
And all of Salem and the people that made it,
Yeah.
you know, that it is today. It's wonderful. When did you start developing an interest in witchcraft?
That has many layers also, many layers actually. I thought about that when I got your question, and of course I've thought about that before, but I would say it was a couple different sort of, how would I say this? There were 3 events that I can think of right now that really impacted me, and each one of them sort of sent me deeper into this, and then of course that grew from there. But I remember reading Celtic Magic, E.J. Conway.
Yes, DJ Conway.
DJ Conway's Celtic Magic. And, it's this little paperback book. I haven't seen it in a long, long time.
I have it, yeah.
You do? Who doesn't have that book?
Yeah,
I had
I
it
know.
forever, and then I don't know where. I have, like, piles and piles of books.
She's on Facebook.
She is? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll have to friend her or become a fan or whatever, a like or whatever, and tell her this because that was my first magic book. And I just remember sitting on the grass and reading it and imagining this and trying some of the things in it. And of course, I was really interested in my Irish heritage at the time. So that's sort of what made me interested in that. I was interested in Irish music and Celtic, everything Celtic. So there was that. And then I also went to a group. It was put on by the Women's Center at my school. And they did a Witchcraft Circle.
Oh, wow.
And by a woman named Clytemnestra. So I haven't heard of her since. But we did this sort of circle. It was just sort of an introductory thing explaining, but also we did some things, and I started to cry, and I couldn't stop crying, and I really couldn't control myself. I really had up to that point I had thought of myself as I had rejected my Catholic family's everything, and I thought of myself more as a, even an atheist, this is a bunch of crap, I was even rooming with a witch and was so not trying so hard not to own what I think now is my destiny, because I was so afraid of the gravity of what it was going to mean for my life that I had put these walls up. And I just started to cry, and it just came down in front of all of these people. They weren't all, most of them were not witches. They were all just there to find something out, and I was just crying.
Wow.
It was almost like a religious conversion or a baptism or something. Like I just had this moment, and then like something just switched.
Wow.
And that was it. And then I read the Miss of
Tapped
Avalon.
something inside.
Yeah, something happened for sure. And then I read the Miss of Avalon, and because it's a work of fiction, I was able to put myself in the character in Morgan Le Fay's shoes and sort of experience it that way, and that made it real for me as well. And then the whole idea of the goddess, and so all these things sort of happened at the same time as doing women's studies, and there it went from there. Yeah,
there's a lot of women that I know, the Miss of Avalon really just changed their life.
Yeah.
It just really, then after that they knew what they wanted.
Right.
And they just started pursuing the craft.
Yes. Yes, that's what happened. Yeah. And now I read other, or watch other versions of the Arthurian myths. I'm like, that's not the real version.
Yeah.
We know who Morgan Le Fay really is,
Yeah.
That's the boy version.
Now let's talk about your dancing.
Okay.
Now, it's probably pretty obvious that your spirituality influences this, correct?
It's obvious to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's obvious to other people, but...
How did it all come about?
I first started learning belly dance in Vermont with a woman named Aya Tabet. And I was just blown away when I first saw women doing belly dance, because it was like they were so beautiful and it was so erotic, but there was nothing about it that we tend to think of erotic and women, and when women express that as that they're degrading themselves in some way. We have that problem. When I saw belly dance, I saw something different. There was nothing degrading. These people were so empowered, and they weren't all young, 20-year-olds. Everything didn't have to be absolutely perfect, and yet it didn't take anything away from the beauty and the glamour and the gorgeousness of it. In fact, it enhanced it, and I wanted some of that. I wanted to learn, well, how do I do that? And of course I thought, I'm like olive oil. I'm tall, big feet, so long arms. Sure, I don't know how that's going to go, but at least I'll go to a few classes and check it out. And then the more I studied goddess spirituality and witchcraft, the more I started to recognize that belly dance has these roots in these ancient cultures and this ancient dance, and we don't have video, so we don't know exactly what the movements were. But basically, belly dance is movement of preparing for childbirth, and it's a movement of mimicking the movements of sex and sexuality, and that those two things aren't split. It's the same thing, and they're holy and they're sacred.
Yes.
And then
it's very empowering.
Yes.
Like you're saying, it's not degrading, it's empowering.
Not at all. And we have we don't get it. I'm really glad that there's so many belly dancers who spend a lot of time trying to educate the public about what belly dance actually is, because it's so often equated with stripping and exotic dance. Yeah. And it's not what it is. No. It's nothing to do with that. It's a cultural dance from the Middle East. Hollywood's influenced a lot what you see, like the sparkly costumes, the bra and the skirt. That's a lot of that's the Middle East influencing Hollywood, and then Hollywood influencing the Middle East, and all that kind of stuff. That's not what folklorically what women wear. Women in the Middle East, are usually covered head to toe and dance only for women, and but there's something special about nightclub belly dance too, and it still has that sacred, beautiful quality. All the coins and all this. This comes from like forever ago. The coins are ancient symbols. So, and you can even speculate that and there's some evidence to this effect. The belly dancer, the coins were from the sacred prostitutes, from the temple dancers from way back, when that was still a sacred thing. You got paid. A woman got paid to have sex with a man as a way to initiate him into the goddess. This was considered holy. So that's one way that I think that these old ancient goddess temples, dances, rituals are connected to belly dance. There's also that women would sew their dowries into their costumes. And then dance. Belly dance is associated with weddings. There's always a belly dancer at a wedding in the Middle East. There's a very ambivalent relationship with that dancer. She's not considered a good woman, but you always have to have her there to ensure fertility. But they hang on to this, to this. It's still important. So there's that string that goes back. And then, so that's the long version. But I've been a goth for a long time, right? Or labeled that way. So my sort of dark aesthetic and belly dance merged. And so most of the pieces that I do embody in some way the archetype of the dark goddess. And to me, her archetype is holy as well.
Just like going back when talking about the craft and how you know, people were treated way back when. It's like people always feared women of power,
Yes.
whether it's the dancing they did or the craft or their spirituality or their
Right.
connections with the goddess. It's just women generally of power have always been feared.
Yes.
I mean, not way, way, way back.
Right.
But since probably Christianity.
At least,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, and certainly in Greek and Roman times, and, you know, but that was sort of that crossover moment, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of goddesses in those pantheons, right?
Mhm.
So that's evidence too. And the rape of this one and the rape of that one,
Mhm.
you could say that those are symbolic moments where these goddess cultures were conquered,
Yes.
and the goddess was sort of absorbed into the patriarchal pantheon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's happened in a lot of places.
The Exquisite Corpse Dance Theater.
Yes.
That's a very interesting name.
Yes, thank you.
How did that come about?
Originally, it wasn't a troupe or a dance theater.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, Exquisite Corpse project was a project, and well, let me back up a little bit to explain what Exquisite Corpse is.
Okay.
Exquisite Corpse is it originates from the Surrealists
Mm-hmm.
in the 19-teens and 1920s. They began an art game where one of them would write a piece of poetry, and then another one would write another sentence on it. Another one would write another sentence on it. So sometimes not knowing what the person before them, the artist before them, had done.
Okay.
And then it would become what you'd call an exquisite corpse.
Hmm.
The body, you know, the exquisite body. It became called Exquisite Corpse because the first line was "The Exquisite Corpse drinks the new wine."
Okay.
Somebody wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became the Exquisite Corpse. And then there's been many, many different branches off of this with painting and all kinds of mediums. So I decided to do it with belly dance.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I had the project first. The name came later. A friend of mine who was also involved in the project said, you know, this sounds like a lot like the Exquisite Corpse, the Surrealist. And I said, that's a perfect name. Thank you. But it was, I gathered together a bunch of professional belly dancers from different regions in New England.
Okay.
And we all added our own piece of choreography into it. I gave them their minutes, and they all did a piece of choreography. And then we got together. We did some things through YouTube, and then we also would get together like once a month. Everybody would travel from their places and rehearse our piece,
Great.
and then we did our piece.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. So that's how it started, and then it became, I continued to use the name as a troupe, and you know, then it's morphed now into a dance company. So it will, and Exquisite Corpse Productions, and you know, it's sort of the umbrella name for all the things that I'm doing.
Okay. Yep. Now you teach belly dancing as well, right?
Yes.
Yep. And you're going to be opening a school?
Well, I'm calling it already a school.
Okay.
It's my school of dance, so it can be anywhere.
Okay.
Why I don't need a building. You know, I rent space, but it's called the Aepril Schaile Mystery School of Dance, and it's my school of instruction on belly dance and my own mix of ritual theater and shamanism and belly dance and performance art.
Okay.
That I've developed over the years, and so I teach technique, but I also teach some theater technique, and I also teach like how, you know, in the advanced levels, how to put these things together so that there's character development and there's some mediumship of archetypes and meaning and those kinds of things.
Great.
Yeah.
And your project now is your DVD.
My project is my DVD,
Yep.
and we're in the middle of shooting it. I've been video a whole lot lately, and it is going to be released in October.
Perfect time.
Yes, a perfect time. And it's called Theater of the Dark Goddess, Belly Dance with Aepril Schaile. And it's part instruction. It has moving meditation. choreography, and then I'll do 2 performances at the end to sort of demonstrate how you put these things together.
Okay.
So it's a lot of connecting the inner world with the external form of dance, and making sure that those 2 things aren't separate.
Great.
Yeah. And of course exploring dark goddess mythology and that kind of stuff. So putting all of these things together.
So when it's available for sale, where can people get this?
People can get it on my website.
Okay, we'll put that on
Great.
the end credits.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll have a store set up for pre-orders, and then once it's released, it'll be available
I'll
just
put
to
a link
order.
on my website too. So
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. And then hopefully a few stores in Salem will carry it.
I'm sure. The viewers are in for a very special treat today. You're going to give us a little dance today.
I am. I'm going to perform a piece.
What are you going to perform today?
It's called Ritual of the Raven, and it's my 4th piece as the Morrigan, and I will become the Raven.
Okay.
And I am on the battlefield. I come out, it's dawn, and I come out on the battlefield, and I see the bodies that are slain. And they sort of dissolve into my ritual that I do to bring their souls into my own body, because the raven is the carrier of souls into the underworld. And I do sort of almost like a funeral for them.
Okay.
And then there's a raven that's already dead, that symbolizes the merging of me with them. And so I become that raven, and I become animate, and I will be the raven,
Great.
bringing
I
the
can't
souls
wait
into
to
the
see.
underworld. And the raven funeral was actually inspired by a blog that I read. So a person I've become friends with over Twitter. Her name is Ms. Graveyard Dirt. And
Okay,
she's a
I
witch
think
who...
I've seen her on.
Have you seen her?
Yeah.
She's wonderful. She's a witch from Scotland. And she's just basically a protectress of ravens and crows. She finds them either dead or alive, and she rehabilitates the ones that are alive, and has, she has her crow TC that she's always mentioning his antics online. But she also does funerals for the ravens and wraps them
Okay.
in things, and places them on an altar and gives them an honor, honors them. And so I thought that was so beautiful. So that's partly what inspired this
Okay.
piece.
Great.
She sent me feathers that she's blessed
Oh, that's
for the
great.
costume. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in today. As we say in the craft, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.